Welcome back, my nomads. Welcome back to another Bitcast. We back at it again. Yo, what's going on, Zach?
Yo, how you doing?
I'm chilling. I am chilling. It's been a good week. Well
Mm,
rested and digested. So, what's new on the
yeah,
front, man?
too much. I'll be in San Francisco next week for a few days for
Oh,
work.
nice, nice.
I hate it, but it's not a good city. Everyone knows this. The people that live there know this. It's not how it was. But
Right.
I gotta stay face and you gotta shake hands and kiss baby heads. So
Kiss baby ass.
that's pretty much it. It's kind of crazy, right? Like we're in February already, right? First
Mm-hmm.
week, almost going into the second week, and it feels like this last 3 weeks have felt like it's been 4 or 5 months worth of information
I
and
know.
just stuff happening, right?
I know, right?
And it's just
It's
like just
crazy.
trying to keep up with it and trying to separate what's real and fiction is very difficult, right? Because everyone's got opinions and everyone's got
Yeah, I know.
this and agendas, and they want to feel like they're vindicated in a certain way, and it's a lot, right? And I think this
Exactly.
ongoing culture war and political war and all this stuff is just trying to separate itself out and get settled, and I just don't think a lot of people have truly digested, the election a couple months ago. Now that he's in and he's doing everything that he said, now it's just like, okay, let's just take a couple deep breaths and just let it settle a little bit, And I think people who oppose that whole thing just are just adding fuel to the fire, and it's just creating more of an issue, And this is just kind of going into everything because, as you know, it spills into everything. It spills into our culture with TV, movies, and games. And then, your job and how it's affected, and my job and how it's affected in the private sector and the tech industry, and everything in between. And it just feels like there's tons of ripples and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's freaking craziness going on. It's like batshit crazy. It's almost like it's almost like Trump went to the doctor and the doctor was like, "Oh, you got X amount of days to live. So,
Yeah,
you
but
better
he's
get your
doing
affairs in
everything what
order."
he's ran on, so it's not like we should be shocked. Like he did every. I mean, I think it's just
I'm
shocking
not
that, and
shocked.
I think it's just shocking that because you know how it usually goes. People run, they don't do the things they say, and he's just doing everything he says, and it's just tough to like take that and like really like, dang, he's doing everything he said. Like I'm waiting any
Well,
day. I'm just waiting any day for like ICE checkpoints to show up in Vegas and start hauling people. Start hauling. Well, they did that last time, right? So I
mm.
was just I was just waiting for that to happen and all that.
Well, I
But
mean, Trump has always been exactly who he says he is. So I'm not
for
I'm
better, for
looking
good
at
or
people
worse,
like
right?
exactly, and I'm looking at people like, "Why are you surprised? He said he was going to do this." Like he said he's going to do this, that, and the third, and you're surprised he's doing it. Oh,
Yeah, he doesn't
you weren't
bluff.
listening. You weren't paying attention. Everything he says he's going to do, he does it pretty much. So he's the type of person who's told you who he was day one. So if you're surprised, I'm just looking at you like, oh, you weren't paying attention.
Yeah, and the fact that he got a popular vote with people voting in the way with him just, I mean, that's a lot. But anyway, enough of that. So I saw that last time we talked, you're saying that you're probably not going to go to the movies anytime soon because it doesn't seem like there's anything really going on, and I kind of feel the same. And I just feel like we're in this place now that nothing original is coming out, and it's just regurgitations of like franchises and you know serial blockbusters and stuff that's just kind of keeping Hollywood afloat, and I just see it having a slow death.
Well, um, there is hope on the horizon, and that I'm seeing a resurgence of like the middle movies, like the I don't know what do you call it, like the $80 million movie, the $60 million movie. You know, they just announced the trailer just came out for Jason Statham's new movie, A Working Man. Shout out to the comedian Godfrey, who was like, "Yo, what is Jason Statham doing? Like, he's the beekeeper, a working man, the mechanic. He just makes these movies where he's
The
whooping people's
transporter.
asses, the transporter, but he's just doing everyday jobs, like So,
Next,
but
we're gonna see
that's
him as
coming out in theaters.
the postal worker.
Guess what, mate? I'm gonna go postal. Like he just
Yeah,
that's what he does, man. So,
but how do you
but
make
you're.
movies with that? Because look, I was watching Sinister the other day, right, with Ethan Hawke. It's a
Mhm.
good movie. It's very well done. Um, Made in 2012. The budget was $4 million, and it made exponentially more than that. It was just one of those horror movies that did extremely well done. Just in terms of everything, it didn't rely on crazy gore and violence to get the point across. But it's like, how do you have movies like? I feel like horror is the only way you can have low budget movies like that and make it work.
I mean, for one thing, I think um, horror is really keeping Hollywood afloat right now because people are just tired of the bullshit. And horror, you can make a good horror movie for cheap and get a lot for your return on it. So that's why, a lot of people go towards horror. Like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
companies go towards horror. And you're starting to see horror turn into franchises now, right?
Oh,
Like now there's a Megan 2 coming out, so
well, we kind of
it's
saw
like
that with The Ring. You saw that with Sinister. They kind
The
of tried to do
Conjuring.
that. Insidious.
Yeah, that's what I
Um,
mean. Insidious. Yeah. No, I think The
but
Conjuring 2 had a
yeah,
couple
yeah, no, the
movies.
same thing. But it's just. But there's one thing: these movies that are horror that have multiple movies, franchises all have in common. The first one's the best, and all of them need to stop being made after that. And it's just
Because
kind of
the first
it
one
wears
is
out.
like
Yeah, it's its own thing.
it, yeah, it happens, and then if you have two, three, four more movies after, it's like, how come this keeps happening to these people?
It's not shocking anymore. It's not like, wow, that's a really good idea. Like that's scary. Like you know what to expect, and
Yes,
it takes that edge away.
yes.
Paranormal Activity, right?
Hmm.
When that was kind of coming out, they've made like six of them, right? And you can kind of get the idea, and they're kind of like interlinked in like some kind of way. The first one, when I saw it, you know, people were asking, "Is this real? Did this really happen?" Cloverfield, another type of thing, that type of stuff.
Found footage type stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That was big when we were younger,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
not really a thing anymore, but
Because it's
I,
been
I
done to
mean,
death.
yeah, because Salem. I mean, what is it? The witch, the witch movie. Which one? It's not Salem Witch. Yeah, Salem Witch Trial. Salem Witch
Blair
Trials.
Witch.
Blair Witch. Thank you, Blair Witch. Yeah, yeah.
Blair Witch.
That type of thing came out in the '90s, right? And it's like that was the first one of its kind.
Hmm.
But like you said, it's like horrors. Like you don't have to do a whole lot. You're really just paying the actors. You don't really need to have a whole lot of special effects. Just some clever editing. But they're just so poorly
Yeah,
made half the time, and it's just not.
yeah.
It's not
And like,
enjoyable like that.
I was talking with people who I do film with today, and they was like, shout out to Trimungus Studios. They was like, the thing about horror too is like they hire these very very sometimes they hire these very cheap actors who can't really act. They hire them because they look good on camera, and then it's like, you had a good premise, but this actor's not selling it, and then you're making it even more cheap than it needs to be. Like, just put a little more money into it, like, so you got that effect. It's like, yeah, I feel
Ninety
that.
percent of the time, you're right.
Like you said,
Because
Sinister, and
Ethan
who did it
Hawke.
have? Ethan Hawke.
I mean,
So
that's not a B-list guy. Like, what are you talking about? Like this,
Academy Award winner. So
and
put the
that's why
money
it was
in.
good. You had
Mhm.
people who could convey the message. And that guy, director's name, I forget his name. I just looked him up yesterday, but he has done,
Is it
Exorcist
James
stuff.
Wan?
No, 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 no. It's someone else. It's a white guy.
Okay.
Um, he's done like the new like Exorcist of Emily Rose, like really good horror
Oh,
movies.
Scott Derrickson, the guy who did
Yes,
the
him.
first Doctor Strange.
Yes, yeah, he did Doctor Strange. Yes, and he wasn't part of the other one too that had that weird.
Doctor
Um,
Strange 2?
yeah, you know how like when they're going through like the sewers and stuff, and or like the maze and stuff, like how it had like that weird Carrie vibes with how the Scarlet Witch was walking around, Paranormal Activity. It was you could definitely tell he had a
Yeah.
say in terms of how that was done, right? Because that's totally him, right?
You know what the rumor mill is?
Mm,
Remember how he was supposed to direct Doctor Strange 2?
yeah.
So the rumor is, I think it's not even a rumor anymore. He wanted to go full on horror, dark core. So he did like a lot of concept art and he fleshed it out.
Uh,
They was like, no, this is Marvel. We wanted PG-13. So they kept a lot of his stuff in there, but they like watered it down.
That's why
So,
it wasn't.
cause
That's why it didn't hit. It didn't land all the way because they didn't
yeah,
fully commit. You got to fully commit to that stuff. Um,
he wanted her
did you
to
ever
fuck shit up. Man.
did you ever see Werewolf, the Marvel short? It was like a
Yes,
movie. Yeah, and it
Night
was
of the
like kind of
Werewolf or something.
Night of the
That was
Werewolf.
good.
It was kind of like Clue with like
Yeah,
who did it type of thing. If they did it like that, because they didn't really pull punches with that, then I think it would have done well. It
and guess who
wasn't because
directed that?
was it him?
No, it was Michael Giacchino, the
Mm.
composer. The
Oh,
composer. He did Star Wars, Batman,
yeah,
like Marvel stuff, but he
yeah.
directed that, and it was good. It was
Okay,
good, man.
that's good to
I
know.
liked it. His first
But
director debut or whatever.
see that's the major issue we have with the last Doctor Strange. It wasn't because the story was disjointed. It just felt like it was just incomplete and it was missing stuff. Like it didn't know what it wanted to be.
Yeah, it feels like they chopped and screwed the edit up and maybe even the story. It just, like you said, it didn't feel complete and it was watered down. Like they built Scarlet Witch up for so long, and they're like, oh, she's going to snap, and then it was like
Fantastic. That's a great idea.
PG-13 snapping.
Yeah, they can't do that. You can't do that with someone like that. You can't, and that was the biggest issue. And I really hope with Marvel making the decision to keep Deadpool the way it is, that they can actually start taking chances. Because you got to think of it. Marvel doesn't mean that everyone has to be appealed to a kid. A lot of these kids and stuff, like think of when the first Avengers came out. They came out 15 years ago, almost 10 years ago, 12, whatever it was. You know, those teenagers
2012.
who watched it are now in their 20s. So all these Marvel movies, Iron Man came out in 2008. That was 17 years ago, right? If
Hmm.
you're 15 seeing Iron Man in 2008, you're 32 now. You don't have to just maintain this like this kid attraction type of thing, right? Like you can take chances because the majority of your client base are our age or mid
Exactly.
20s, right? So when they have the Punisher and when they have Daredevil and stuff come to the streaming portion, I really hope that they stick to the true colors of how it was on Netflix because it has to, right? And that's why the Scarlet Witch didn't land as a villain because while that was a great idea, it was a great premise, she was supposed to be nasty and she wasn't. She was in despair. Like she's supposed to be ripping people apart with her crazy powers, because she's this extremely powerful mutant and all that, right? And it
And
just
the
didn't
story
land
just didn't
because of
make
that.
sense.
Well,
Also,
it's like it said, we didn't know what it wanted to be. Because it didn't know what it to be, it was dancing around these lines until, the
yeah,
multiverse popped up.
and that's why I'm afraid for Daredevil. One, well, for those who don't know, I love Daredevil. That's my guy. Two, what's it called? Marvel lately has just been garbage.
Yeah,
Well, Disney, period.
yeah.
Three, I looked at the trailer for the new Daredevil. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's cool. It looks like it has some action, some brutal action. But I'm like, do they understand that's not the only reason why the Netflix show was good? Not just because of the great action scenes, but because of the great story, the great writing.
So that's what I wanted to talk to you about. So I read something about how they said in the Netflix series there was too much talking and not enough action, and they wanted to add more action to it. I was like, no, no, no. you can't do that because the characters were so developed and you could relate to them. That's what made it so appealing. And the action was just the icing on top.
Icing on the cake. Yeah.
And because of that, now you're messing with something that's proven. Why do
Yes.
you have to do that? It doesn't it doesn't make sense, especially now, right? Like look, when the Punisher season 1, when he was fighting his friend Russo, right? Chris
Mm.
Russo, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
And you could
Billy
just tell
Russo.
from Billy Russo, you could tell from John Barenthal's character Frank's like his need for vengeance and the fact that it was his closest friend that killed his family just made it that much more compelling. And you're rooting for the fact during that torture scene when he was scraping his face across the glass in the carnival.
Yeah.
That just made it that much more powerful, right? And you, how would it have happened unless there was just tons of action? Then you're like, oh, it's just another scene. But no, you felt it because Frank isn't a
Mm.
complicated character. He's not complex. So because he's not complex, and you want someone that, and there isn't a ton of attention, it's tough to keep someone's attention on that because they're not complex. You're not thinking about it, and it's such a simplistic angle in terms of revenge. How do you do that? Well, the relationship between him and the person who did it.
And let's not forget John Barenthal knocks it
Fantastic
out the
job.
park.
And
Um,
Ben Barnes too. Great job.
Ben Barnes. Yes. So you're completely right about that. When you were talking about that, I'm thinking of Daredevil 2, which was more of a vehicle to start the Punisher, right? I'm
Yep.
thinking about that scene where he's sitting on the slab, the graveyard slab, and he's just talking to Daredevil. He's sitting there telling him how the night was before his family was killed, what he did, how he read to his daughter, or he wished he read to his daughter at night. And then he's talking about how he saw her get shredded by bullets right in
Mm-hmm.
front of him. Like, and I'm just sitting there thinking, like, they didn't cut to some action scene. Well, this was after an action scene, but they didn't
Yeah.
cut it. Like,
Well, that's how
the
they did
scene was
it with
probably
him.
like 10 minutes. The scene was
Yes.
probably like 10 minutes, and he's described, and your heart's breaking. He's like, "Yo, Red, I should have read to my little girl that night. I should have read." I'm like, "Damn,
Dude,
bro."
so that was the good thing I liked about that show because speaking of, they did those heart to heart moments after they would tango with each other. So the first time they met in the hospital, right? They're fighting and they're going through it, and Frank has
Yeah, I
got the
like
crazy
that.
shotgun and shooting, and then they get to the rooftop and then they talk for about 10, 15 minutes about Frank's past with him being, force recon and how he just got completely fucked over by his exo and all
Yeah,
this other stuff, right? And he doesn't have all the pieces yet, but he's starting to
right.
get some of it together, and he's just trying to like, hey, this is what I'm out for. It's nothing personal, type of thing, right? And I'll be damned if you stand in my way, so I can get the revenge. It did so well where it started with action, but towards the end, the action was completed with them talking and having a heart to heart, knowing that next scene was already inevitable, and it's been set in motion because they talked and they know they're going to run into each other again, right? It was almost futile with the fact that they're talking because they know they're going to meet each other again, but and
Yeah,
it didn't matter. It set it up. It's like dusting your house. When you dust your house, you already know you're going to dust in a couple days. It just doesn't just magically poof and go away, right? It's the same thing. And
right.
I like that. And I hope they don't take that aspect away from him because, look, Frank's not a villain, right? I mean, by any means, he's not a villain. Now, he's not necessarily a good guy either, but, he kind of skirts the lines that uh, Daredevil does. But, I,
With
I
one
just think
difference, he chooses to kill, right?
right, exactly.
And
But Disney does not have a good track record with this type of way of
nope,
storytelling at all.
nope. Now they kind of did from 2008 to 2019.
Dude,
And then
that was a long
that's when
time
the
ago.
political stuff happened. Yeah, literally 2019, bro. That was 6 years ago.
I mean,
That's
we're
a
going
long time.
2008. That was almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, 2008 was almost 20. That was that was like the golden age, right? 2008 to
The
2019.
2015, I think, was really the golden age because the reason why those movies in
That's
19 were
true.
The reason why those movies in 19 were good is because they were made years prior and they weren't infiltrated with the nonsense that it is now.
Oh, don't forget, Winter Soldier came out 2014. So 2014 and 2019, those
Civil
5 years were
War,
crazy.
Civil War was
Crazy.
good. It was so good.
Civil War.
It was
Everything that
great.
came out was good.
And then as soon
Like
as they started messing with the Hawk and make Bruce Banner and the Hawk the same thing, I'm like, you're taking away the Incredible Hulk, that alter
they
ego.
nerfed him, bro.
I'm like, why are you taking this away? Like, anyway, and plus Mark Ruffalo, I don't like him anyway. He's just kind of annoying. He's one of those guys that he's just so overt with his like opinions that he just turns people off because he just thinks
Oh,
anyone
really?
disagrees with. Oh, he's awful, straight
I
awful,
haven't
dude.
seen anything with him outside of like movies or anything.
Well, go on his social media, you'll see tirades of stuff. It's like anyone disagrees with him, it's like, how dare you type of thing. And it's like,
Oh,
come
really?
on, man.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. I'm like, come on, man. Like, you don't know how many people disagree with you that you're working with and you're
Oof.
alienating them. Because a lot of people keep
Mm,
that stuff quiet. You know what I mean? The ones who are quiet,
mm.
you can tell, are the ones who disagree with you, you know, especially in Hollywood, because there's a perception that if you view things on such a crazy, loony left way, you're rewarded with more parts. So the ones who are quiet aren't going to say anything because, it's dignity and
Exactly.
stuff, right? So,
Mm.
but anyway, I mean, besides the points, just I just feel like there's a lot of things they have to rectify to get back on track, and I think all things must come to an end. Rome died after 500 years, and I think we're at the tail end of the dynasty.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is what it is, bro. we're right at the cusp of it. And it's funny that you bring that up because um, my peoples at Tramongus, we were talking, they finally saw Megalopolis. They were
It
like,
was
oh my
disappointing.
gosh, that was
So here's the
god
thing,
awful.
right? Guillermo del Toro, fantastic filmmaker, right?
Yeah.
He says it was very good. I'm. We had
That's like,
hopes.
hold on. That's like when Tom Cruise was like, "Oh, The Flash is the greatest superhero movie ever." I'm like,
What?
really? Have you seen any other ones? Like, what? You don't remember that?
We had hopes for Megalopolis, but it was so disjointed. And when I saw it, I'm looking at him like, he makes so many good points. Like, you could tell the foundation, the idea of the movie is fantastic, but it's just muttered with nonsense.
Yeah.
Like the
I'm like,
idea and
first of all,
everything, right? Like it's got a cool premise. You got good actors, but then you start having these awful cringy lines
oh my
with
god,
there's like real
the
no
worst
conviction.
writing I ever. There's scenes where the characters are literally quoting Shakespeare quotes from start to finish,
I
but
know.
there's no the context of
Yeah.
it doesn't really line up with what's happening in the scene.
I would
And
put
I'm
them in
like,
Clone Wars in the same place in writing.
I don't know. Megalopolis might be worse than Clone Wars because at
No.
least the lines in Clone Wars were still about a story. Unless you're talking about the romantic lines
Ugh.
from Anakin, that George Lucas could not write
That whole love
romance.
thing, dude, like when they're going back and forth, Natalie Portman's a great actress.
I know.
And it made her look awful in this. Like, it just looked so fake. It looked manufactured. Like, all
It
right, I'll give
was.
you a good example. Like the fruit flavors in Dr. Pepper, how it has a nasty aftertaste and you know it's fake? That's what it was. I could not shake it.
It's like Robot Chicken, where it's
Oh,
like she's
God.
dressed half naked and she's like, "No, we can't do this." It's like, well, put some clothes on.
Yeah, yeah,
Dude,
yeah, 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 yeah.
why are you sitting here seducing me? And like, we can't do this. I'm a senator. It's like, what? Senators can't have relationships? What galaxy is this? There's a lot
Freaking.
of. I mean, your
Hey, I'm
parents were
breaking my
senators.
space nun rules for you, just letting you
I
know.
know, right? It's like if you didn't believe in the Force before, you believe in it now because that's the only reason they would have fallen in love because of the Force.
It
It
was
was like, hey,
forced, yeah.
you guys have to fall in love, or everything's going to collapse. So
This
this
is a
has to
perfect
happen.
segue to one of our topics. Disney
Word.
lost subscribers, right? but they somehow
Hmm.
managed to make better than expected profits for a couple things. One, price
Moana.
increases. And thank you. Moana had $1 billion showing. So they had some couple home runs. And what was the other one? The one with the Inside
Inside
Out
Out.
2. Yes,
Yeah.
Inside Out 2. Those two covered the losses for it. But here's the thing, right? And
Isn't that crazy?
ESPN Plus is just plummeting. That's why they're doing the ESPN Bet, and they're doing free subscription packages if you start gambling with the Disney platform. The crazy thing is, how many home runs do you have that in your belt this year? You don't have any. You're hoping that
Mm.
Captain America can do this. You're hoping for it, but
It's not.
if
It's not.
Anthony Mackie is just going to say that Captain America is not the embodiment of what the U.S. is, but for everyone, it's like, bro, you're just stepping on the wrong foot by just. And I know he didn't mean anything by it, but all you're doing is just furthering going down the path of what so many people felt for so long with Disney is taking sides instead of just telling everyone who does these press tours to keep their mouth shut.
And
It's
so
that
Anthony
simple.
Mackie, he's always been that weird guy who sometimes says off kilter things, but this time I kind of saw what he was trying to say, but I'm
Me
like,
too.
you said it in the
Awfully.
most like convoluted
But
way.
but Disney does not have any more slack for understanding anymore. They've lost it. They burned all of the goodwill with all of the nonsense they've spewed the last 7 years, and because of that, people aren't willing to give them the benefit of the doubt.
They are the new DC. Remember when DC kept releasing trash
Yes,
after trash movie
yes,
and people stopped going period no matter what the movie was because they're like, oh, it's
yes.
just going to be trash. That is Disney now. People aren't watching the shows.
Nope.
Like, I guarantee you the people who are still subscribers are people like me who have young children who watch stuff on Disney, and it's like, I gotta keep the platform because Disney doesn't make Blu-rays of their shows or their movies anymore. So it's like I gotta keep the platform,
Well,
So
there's ways to do it, and I've told you how to
I
do it,
know,
and
I know. I'm working on something right now,
they're
but
they're at a point now. It's almost like a technocrat type of situation, and it's just
mhm.
nonsense. I'm like, when are you going to learn your lesson? When are they going to learn their lesson? Like, you think with the Rachel Zegler thing that happened a couple years ago with Snow White, and she went into witness protection pretty much. She disappeared. No one knew where she went, and then all of a sudden, she started doing press tours
Yeah,
with
she
Halle
started
Berry.
talking different.
And because Halle Berry was next to her, she was kind of like, you could tell she was kind of like coaching her. Was like,
You mean
look,
Halle Bailey? Halle
yeah,
Bailey.
Halle Bailey. Yeah, I'm sorry.
But
She
because
was,
Halle Bailey is so likable, she
yeah,
made Rachel Zegler look a little better. Rachel was clearly coached in what to say
yeah.
because her rhetoric was so different.
You could tell she's no longer spewing the man hater stuff that she was before.
Yep, yep,
And I think it's too late, right? Because people are going to see Snow White and they're like, well, do you remember what she said?
yeah.
Here's the thing, and this is the one thing about Disney that really just irritates me. Their 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 customers are not the kids; it's the parents. And you know what they do every single time they do this? It does not make me want to go ahead and take my family out to go pay for any of this stuff at all. None of
No,
it. Why was it when me and you were discussing us doing something with our families that we did not talk about going to Disney once?
thank you, thank you.
For what? We're spending almost the same amount of money as if we did go to Disney, right? So it comes down to, why do we need to be part of that? We don't need to.
We
Like the
don't.
Disney of us, in terms of us growing up, is dead. And I mean dead. It's so far under the ground, it doesn't even. It might not it might as well not even exist anymore. They
Nope.
pretty much have erased it from their history anyway. You know.
Yeah, they're redoing their shit and making it worse.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying. Especially with all this live action stuff, and you got this. I'm like, at what point,
Why
guys?
is
Like,
there a live action Moana? Moana came out in 2016. Why is there a live action Moana?
I
2016.
and
I get it. It was
Especially
9 years
when the
ago,
guy
but
who
still.
got fired and launched after this whole coup attempt with Bob Iger about a year and a half ago because the Snow White thing, that guy was the one who got launched, who headed the live
All the
action
live action
stuff.
shit. But they're still
Like
doing
what?
a live
Why?
action Moana. Why? Why?
It's like doing a live action Toy Story. Makes no sense.
No. But even still, Toy Story, the first one came out in the 90s, in the early 90s,
95?
like 95. Yeah,
94?
yeah,
Something like
95.
that?
Moana came out in 2016.
Uh,
It's, and Moana 2 just came out this year.
dude,
So why the fuck are you?
it's like doing a live action Aristocats or something. That movie came out in the 40s, okay, or 50s,
And they
whatever
would
it
do
was.
like
It's
a
old.
CG live action cat, just like Cats did.
Yeah, and they would just have like a random like voice in there, like Kevin Hart or something in there to lighten the mood or something stupid. You know they
I mean,
would.
dude, the fun, yo, did you know that for the live action Little Mermaid, they had Aquafina as the scuttlebutt, as that talking bird pelican, and she was singing Aquafina. Have you heard the song? It is
No.
horrendous.
You
Who told
know,
Aquafina to be a
I've only
singer?
seen 2 live action Disneys. The first one was Jungle Book because it was good.
That was good.
Second one, I saw Lion King just because I had to, and I'm like,
It
a
was
couple things
garbage,
ruined. It was garbage because it was just a regurgitation of the same exact thing with different voices, which I
literally,
thought was a mortal
but
sin
yet
in
still
itself.
longer. But yet it was still longer. How the
The
fuck?
mortal sin was that you had the same exact script and you don't even have all the same voices. What?
Dude,
Just because you're in Africa, everyone has to be black in there. I don't understand. Like I just wanted to just shake. I'm like, here's the thing. It
I
wouldn't have
gotta
been
say
nearly as
this.
bad if Jeremy Irons was Scar. If he was Scar, then guess what? I might have enjoyed it more. But because he wasn't, and that relationship between Scar and Mufasa and that vengeance with Simba, he didn't just completely disappear. Made no sense. Because Jeremy Irons is
No,
suspicious and Scar wasn't evil, he wasn't bad, he was like, oh, okay, whatever, it was just
I'll tell you what, you wouldn't have liked it, and I'll tell you why. One, because real lions don't emote, so there's no connection. Some people don't understand why it didn't resonate with them. That's
oh
because
man,
lions
because a
have
lot of
the same
animals.
face for everything.
Yeah,
Animals
because
have the same face.
most animals don't have that. The ones that do have emotional intelligence, like dolphins and stuff like that, right?
And
Or,
dogs can emote. They can have, you know,
but certain things, but they gotta use their tails and bark and stuff to
yeah,
like go with it. Like unless it's a chimp or something primate related, you don't really have
right.
a way to. Which I think is part of the reason why I think Jungle Book was so good, right? Because the main character was human, um,
Exactly.
which helps a ton,
Exactly.
right? Because everyone else, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, that's not so bad. And the
But
evil guy's a snake, and that kind of coincides with snakes and humans anyway, because of the book of the Bible and stuff, right? So like that's just like ingrained in us to automatically think the
yes,
snake's bad,
bro,
right?
I
And then
gotta
you
say this.
go ahead.
I know I'm gonna be called a sellout and a coon for saying this,
Ooh,
but let me preface this by saying there's a difference between acting and voice acting, right? You got Donald Glover to
yeah,
be grown up Simba, and he sounded horrible.
made no
You got
sense.
Beyonce, who I know I'm going to be called all these names for saying this. She cannot act. Period.
No,
You got
might as well
her
have
to
Taylor Swift in
voice
there.
Nala. You got her to voice Nala. So you got two people who phoned in their voice acting job for Lion King, and they're the main lions in the movie.
Voice acting is
Garbage.
difficult, and people understand like there's a certain type of skill to go along with it. That's why a lot of voice actors they have trouble doing real acting and vice versa, right? Like the ones that kind of do both, like it's weird. Like
Hmm.
Chris Pratt did a very good job with his voice acting. I think
Yeah.
he does. Like that's
The
tough
only one
because
he didn't do good was Garfield because he wasn't the right fit for that.
right,
But
exactly.
everything else he's done good.
Lego The Lego Movie, fantastic. He did a good job in
Mario, he actually
Mario.
did good.
He did good. The movie itself, I wasn't a huge fan of, but like him inflections and stuff like his. I'll give you an example. Troy Baker, who's probably one of the top voice actors right now,
One of the best. There's a reason why he gets all the jobs.
but
I'm
he's a good
sorry.
actor too, right? Like he
Yeah,
doesn't. He can do both. And I watched a special features thing of him, and when he did The Last of Us, because he did Joel, right? And he's talking about how difficult it is to pretend you're in a snowstorm, or pretend when you're far away, or you're in distress, and all of this other stuff. Like there's so much to it, and some people, like you said, like with Donald Glover and Beyonce, they just like they were monotone. They didn't have inflection in key moments. They didn't seem excited. There was a lot.
they
There wasn't any
just
tension. Like there wasn't anger
no,
in his voice when he was fighting Scar. Like there was a
no.
lot of problems with
He
that.
phoned it in. He phoned it in, and both him and Beyonce were only cast because of their popularity at the time.
Yeah,
And
famous black
Beyonce's
people.
always
That's
going.
it.
And Beyonce clearly got the job because they was like, we need a big pop star to do the soundtrack. Oh, Beyonce, you act too. You might as well. And then I see in the Mufasa movie that her daughter Blue Ivy is doing the voice of Simba's daughter. I'm like, oh, you guys are just phoning this in again. You're just doing the whole popular thing, the phoning in.
Yeah, they didn't learn
Like,
the first time, right?
so I didn't even I saw the trailer where they changed the animals to emote a little more, but they still look like just
It looks clownish.
regular.
You might as well just have a cartoon.
Or even if you do, because it's not live action, right? It's all CG stuff. If you do a CG one, do it kind of like in a Toy Story Pixar style, where it's
It's okay if they
stylized.
remake the cartoon. That's okay, right?
Yeah,
It's
but you
okay.
don't even have to do that. Just enhance it like they did with the Blu-ray release. Just enhance it.
We're at a point
But
now. Disney, like I said, movies this year. There's nothing original. It's just the same old stuff. It's franchises. It's just picking back, and this is that slow death. We're at a point, and I feel like after the writers' strike, movie writers are just at a loss of what to do. Like they don't know what to do. Like seriously, like okay, we're
well,
just
I
going to
think
do
it's the
this.
studio. I think the studios don't want to take any chances, not
Well,
the
they don't want to take any
writers.
chances, and they want to make money. And it's like you got to spend money to make money, and you're just. But the only way you think you can make money is just tug at the strings of nostalgia instead of doing something original, right? Like at least Denis Villeneuve is doing something with Dune, which I'm surprised he didn't get a nod for an Oscar. No love,
Yeah,
nothing.
that's highway robbery, but
And
you
I'm
know
looking forward
this is
to
why people
Gareth
stop watching
Edwards'
Oscars.
version of Jurassic Park. I think he's going to do a very good job.
Right?
Um,
Is that the new one
because
that's coming out, or that's something else?
yep, new one.
Let me check that because I don't know. I don't want to get it wrong because I've been fooled before. I went to a movie. I'm like, hey, this isn't the thing that I thought it was gonna
No,
be.
no, no.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, he is doing a new, and he's got a big budget. So I'm looking forward to him seeing what he can do with a big budget, and if he's willing to do his same old tricks that we appreciate him for.
Yep, that's our
I
boy.
know. I'm looking forward to it, dude.
But to circle back what you said in the beginning of the pod, what I'm looking forward to is the smaller movies like Love Hurts. I'm gonna see that in theaters. I haven't seen it yet, but stuff like this where it's this was clearly made for like maybe 50
Oh, that's the
mil.
guy from Loki.
Yeah, Ki Hugh Kwan. I always mess up his name,
Okay,
but
so he was in a movie as a kid, and I always forget what it
Indiana
was.
Jones Temple of Doom,
Thank you,
and he
thank
was
you.
in Goonies too. Yeah,
Yes, thank you. Indiana Jones Temple of Doom. Okay,
and
so
people
this looks
think that
cool.
he just like stopped, like he disappeared. He didn't disappear from the industry. He was behind the scenes. He was doing action stuff. He stopped acting in front of this camera, but he was doing stunt fight choreography and stuff like that.
Oh,
So
so he can fight. Is that Marshawn Lynch?
yeah, martial arts. Yeah,
I saw him in like one of the episodes of Westworld in the last season. Remember, he's just like that random guy who was just like
Yeah, I was
fighting.
like,
What's like
oh,
what the heck?
Marshawn Lynch is here, and he's just like the big brute guy. That season didn't make sense, but but yeah, like this is the movie I'm gonna see in the theater. It's just an action movie made for like 50 mil. It's funny. It's and I'm gonna watch it. It's probably gonna make a lot of money because it's just
You
not
just need
trying to be political.
enjoyable. It doesn't need some kind of agenda.
Yeah,
It's just simple. It's like you know what you're
and it
getting
came out
yourself
today.
into. Okay, yeah.
Came out today,
Well,
so I'm gonna see it like Monday or something. But yeah, it looks dope, and it just wants to entertain me. Basically, it's not trying
we don't get
to.
enough of that. It's either a message or if it's an Oscar sellout. And I this is a good segue into our next thing, right? Well, we can kind of
Mm,
do two things, right? We could do AI in movies, and we're going to talk about Craven and Superman, or we can talk about narrative games that they're doing games that are made for like like for movies, and then they end up making them into movies. So let's do the AI first with Superman Craven, and then we can talk about that because I feel like the narrative type stuff is going to be a little more in depth. So I saw on Instagram the other day that the Superman image stills that they had for like the movie that's coming out, the Superman movie, that people were
mm.
saying that the I forget the actor's name is playing Superman. His face was altered by
David
AI.
Cornsweet.
Thank you, David Cornsweet. That his face was manipulated by AI generation. And then Gunn actually commented on that and said there was no AI in this at all. And
Mm.
I feel like we're at a point now because what was it? Was it last year during the Super Bowl? Which person had it was Coke. Coke had an AI generated commercial for the Super
Yep,
Bowl and it just didn't land, right? So we're at
and
a
they've been
point now
doing that for a while.
we're at a point now where this is going to get more and more common, especially with these AI companies having photorealistic type of videos being generated with their platforms. Um, AI and the Craven thing, Superman. We're at a point now, dude. Um, I think this is going in the wrong direction. I feel like AI was never meant to replace, but to supplement.
Yeah, yeah. See, bro, people you and I have been saying that from day one, and so many
Especially with me
companies have
being in
just
the
been like,
industry, right? Like
nope,
we're on we're on two opposite ends of the same coin. You're in the
right,
movie part. I'm in the technical world. I'm in the tech. Like I work in this industry that fuels this stuff, right? So I see firsthand how it's built and what it does and everything, and then you see the effects from it. And I think people in your industry don't quite understand what it was actually meant for.
exactly. And you see all these companies getting rid of what's it called? Ah, getting rid of all these VFX houses and just using AI. I mean, look at the mouth. They
It's
used
awful.
AI to replace her mouth.
Why?
and and his mouth. Like, so they didn't reshoot the scene. Look at
Yeah. Why would they do that?
that.
It's not even natural.
To save money, instead of reshooting the scene, clearly they changed the lines up. Oh my gosh, look how bad that looks. Look at their
Did they?
mouths. Like,
When you're going, is there a QA process for movies? I'm just curious.
there is, but I don't think these companies care. Like,
It's
year
not like
after
you couldn't
year, it
have
gets
noticed. Look
worse,
at that, dude. Look, her lip
bro.
doesn't even bend naturally.
I know, I know.
And it's got a weird
And
shadow
he,
that's not even natural. You see how
it
like
even extends to her nose. It's like this whole part of her face was
seriously, you know
replaced.
how like some people like superimpose like a mouth, like the bad lip syncs where it's superimposed the mouth onto someone else to make it sound like
That's
something
what it
else?
looks like.
That's what it looks like, dude. It looks so fake. It looks like something from like All That where they have like the mouth talking on like a baseball card and
Yeah, they're
that's
like,
it. Yeah,
yeah, they're
exactly.
like,
But I don't understand like how it's either they don't care, like you said, or their QA is just so bad. How do you not notice? I'm not even. Well, I take that back. I do know when things are AI manipulated because you can kind of see it's not perfected yet, but that's
bro,
awful.
this is a
Look at
still
that.
image. Look at this.
It's a still
That's a
image.
still image. She's not moving at all except for this part. That's a still image, bro.
How much money did it spent to make that movie? By the way,
Oh, good question. Let's look at it. How
because
much
I
did
tell you what, if it was 180 million, what's an extra couple mil to fix that?
All right, let's see. It's estimated to 110 to 130 mil,
That's a lot.
and it only made 61 mil at the
Oh
box
yeah,
office.
because I didn't see it. I'm not going to see it.
I didn't see it. No,
Why would they?
no,
First off, he's the wrong pick. I love him. He's good. Wrong guy. hundred
he's
percent.
not Craven.
You need.
Gerard Butler is more of a Craven than him.
You know who also could have done it? I mean, Henry Cavill could have done it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the guy that the guy that replaced Ray Stevens in the playing
Oh, the Hound.
yeah, he could play him. He's supposed to be this
Yep.
big, intimidating guy. Aaron Taylor Johnson's
Hell,
not a
if
big
Ray
guy.
Stevenson didn't die, he could have played him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Shit.
Aaron Taylor Johnson's not a big guy. He's not this. And first off, where's the Russian accents on this stuff? I'm trying to figure that out still. Like,
Everybody's British.
everyone's British. Like, did we just assume that now we're back to British accents equates to evil? You know, like we're at a
Pretty
point.
much, I guess.
We are at a point, dude, where we're going to see a World War II movie, and the accents coming out of the Nazis' mouth is going to be British. I'm telling you right now, we're at that point.
Well, remember that Valkyrie movie where Tom Cruise had an American accent as a Nazi undercover guy
Okay,
or
but that was a
double
good
agent or
movie.
whatever?
That didn't bother me. He was the only American in there, pretty much. Everyone else was British. That's okay.
Yeah,
Dude,
everybody else was British.
everyone killed it with the acting. I could care less about the accents because it was so good. That isn't good, and that's
No.
distracting. And because it's
They literally
not good,
took a still image and AI manipulated. Just reshoot the scene or leave the scene as is. See, this is where good editing comes in. It's like you can hide stuff like that with
or
plates, different plates of him looking at her while she's talking. You know,
that scene, how important is it in the movie? It's not like the movie was
I don't
good
know. I
anyway.
haven't seen the movie.
I'm not going to see the movie.
No.
And also,
And
I mean,
to your point, oh, go ahead.
not to divert, but why is the villain being the good guy still a thing?
Sony, oh my gosh. Remember when we talked about the Penguin and I
Yes.
was like, Sony, take notes?
It's like with Venom, it's like he's not a good guy. It's like, what are we
They ruined
doing?
Venom.
You know,
I don't know what's worse, what Marvel did to the Hulk or what Sony did to Venom. I
You're
don't know
right.
what's worse.
The Penguin, Sony should take notes because you can like a bad guy even though he's a bad guy. There's parts of him being human you can relate to. That doesn't mean that you have to be disgusted with yourself because every chapter one of a bad guy starts at a place where you can relate to. That's how it works. That's what makes him a captivating
every good
bad guy.
Bad guy.
Right, exactly. Chapter one's like, shit, I could see myself going into that if the situation aligns to the path that led him to that or her that, right? And that's what it did.
That's
with
why
Penguin.
people relate with Killmonger and Thanos. You know, that's why people are like Thanos was right, Killmonger was right, because it's relatable stuff.
Yeah,
you
because
know,
the logic you can lead to because it's clearly pointed out and makes sense. But with these guys, Craven, like, what are we doing? He's not a good guy. He's bad. Why are we just starting him off good? He what? It makes no sense. It's not even believable he could fight Spider-Man. They're the same size.
yeah, like the Craven in the comics is
It's
a beast
huge.
of a man. He's like Alan Richardson Reacher big, or you know, like, and he's like got this thick Russian accent. He's always got his shirt off, where he's got a vest with no shirt on.
His pecs are so big that I can fit a 50-gallon jug of water in it. All right, they're huge.
I mean, anybody could have been. I mean, don't get me wrong. Aaron Taylor Johnson, no matter what he's in, he's going to kill it. But some people
It's not the
just
part for
aren't
him.
right for that part.
I'm
And it
not
should have
meant
been
for it. It's fine. It's
a
okay.
big dude. Like,
Yes.
I don't know, bro. and it looked like they were making him like, I don't know. They just made him look like, remember Sabretooth from the X-Men Wolverine Origins movie,
Oh,
where
Liev Schreiber
Sabretooth was climbing the wall. Liev Schreiber.
did a great
They
job.
basically made him into that. He did a great job, but he was in a bad movie. He was great. The movie was bad. But they basically took that character and put him in Craven. They made him Craven, basically, with a British accent when he's supposed to be Russian. But it's okay, mate. My mother was British. So what they did.
I just wanted to
But
put a Diesel sticker on him.
you're Thomas the Train. You're a Diesel. It's like, if you mention a
You,
Diesel one more time, I'm gonna fucking.
when have you
Oh
had
man,
a
I love
lemon
that movie.
meringue pie?
I love that movie. We are fucked. I love that movie, man. Shout out to David Leitch. He makes great action comedy movies.
Just
Never stop.
takes a while to make his movies. Like who's another awful offender for that? Matt Reeves.
Matt Reeves is the worst. Worst
The stuff's
offender.
great. Here's the thing. We complain. We're like, "Wow, that movie's incomplete." But he makes the time. At least he makes the effort to make sure the movie's done when he has it out, right?
Yeah.
So that's good.
You know what he needs? Hard deadlines. That's what he needs.
No, because then you
Not
rush it and you cut
impossible
stuff.
ones. Not impossible ones. I just mean a deadline because, and I suffer from this too, where it's like if you come up with the deadline yourself, it's never going to be good enough. So you gotta have a reasonable deadline, but a
Yeah.
deadline nonetheless.
To go
You
back
know,
to your point
so
about movies, there's one movie I want to see. I want to see that Robert Pattinson movie of him being a clone of himself this year.
Mickey 17. I'm looking forward
Yeah,
to another not so big budget one, but
it's
big
made by
enough.
the guy who did the Korean director who did Snowpiercer, and he's done Parasite and all the other like crazy horror stuff. So hey,
Yeah, he does good work.
he
I
does good
always
work.
mispronounce his name, but he always does good work.
He does
Korea,
fantastic.
like their art, I don't know what it is, but their art department over there is on point because everything
Dude,
they do
I've
is
seen
on
some of
point.
their stuff. Like they had when I had Netflix, they had like zombie shows on Netflix that were Korean. That stuff was good, man.
Everything they did, like it's funny that it took what's it called? Squid Game for people to go, oh man, Korea has good stuff. They've been putting out great content for a while. Do you not have a Netflix account? Like, what are you talking about, bro? Like they do good period piece stuff, they could do good modern stuff, good sci-fi. They just do good stuff. They're able to create over there, you know. Which part of Korea is it, north or south? That's the one we like.
South Korea, North Korea is the bad one.
South, yeah. So South Korea is something about them over there. They fund their art department. They it's kind of like the UK where acting and filmmaking is actually considered like a good art and a good profession. So they have programs where people at a young age can start doing that. Like John Boyega was in programs like that. Idris Elba. They talk about those programs. So it's like really taken seriously over in the UK, which is why they're getting all the roles over here
Mm-hmm.
because they take it serious and they treat it like a real profession slash art.
Right. All right. Well, this goes into the next thing. So I started playing a game called Death Stranding on Xbox. Started on the PlayStation. It's a Hideo Kojima production. Guy who does Metal Gear Solid.
Shout out to him.
He is fantastic. He is one of the few
He
guys
is
that really makes video game production, writing, directing, and really makes it an art. And he's very detail oriented. So, as you know, he makes his games like movies in terms of
right,
how the characters interact with each other, how it's shot, how there
and
is
he's always been
dialogue.
like that from
It's
day
been like
one,
that from day
since the
one.
the '80s when he was making games.
And so I've been talking about Death Stranding. Death Stranding is very unique. You said it was a walking sim, kind of, in the sense that it's
Yeah,
unique in the
for what
sense
I
that
seen.
it takes adventure and action and puts it together in a weird place. So, are you familiar with the story? I'll give you a minute summary if you're not. Okay, so Norman
When it first
Reedus
came
is
out, I looked at gameplay footage and I was like, I'm not playing a walking sim. I don't care
Don't
if
play
they
this.
ruined
You
it.
won't like it. It's too difficult. There's too much going on. So
Hmm.
Norman Reedus is a guy called Sam Bridges. Well, Sam Porter. He is a porter in a post-apocalyptic world with the world's pretty much destroyed and disjointed because there's these things called BTs called beach things, because anytime someone dies their soul doesn't truly pass over into the afterlife. They're stuck in this in between period called a beach instead of them moving forward, and what happens is their spirit stays on the planet, and then they travel between the planet and the beach, and
Hmm.
they pretty much kill people. And what happens is that when these BTs actually attaches to a person, it creates a nuclear-esque type of explosion called a void out, and it just pretty much kills
Jeez.
everyone, right? So the premise is Sam Norman Reedus is a thing called a repatriate, meaning if he dies, his soul can enter back into his body, and
Wow.
he's got special powers called dooms, which allows him to see these ghost things. Not everyone can, and there's some people that have the same kind of powers as these entities do. And then there's terrorist organizations that try to destroy cities by killing people, let them go necro, and then what happens is that their spirit leaves the body and then goes attack someone, and that's when the explosion happens, right? So anyway, you're trekking across America, and what you're doing is that you are trying to connect America with this thing called a chiral network, which is based on the same technology and supernatural plane that allows these beach things to actually like travel across mediums, right? So you're trying to meet these people, trying to meet them in these bunkers and all this stuff. And the rain that's in here is called timefall, which means it accelerates your aging. So that's why everyone's always in rain gear, because anything that it touches, it ages immediately. So your items will degrade quick. You'll start, dying and all this other stuff. It's very fascinating. So anyway, he goes through this whole process. This game is built like for a movie. My issue is because they're making a movie with this, and he's the one doing it. Games that are built like this, i.e., Mass Effect, this, take your pick. I don't really see them ever translating well into actual movies or shows, because like what you're doing right there, what he's doing, like this type of thing, it takes away from the gameplay. Like I feel like people are going to have an expectation of what this game is, and it's not really going to be as it's not, the game is not going to really truly be um translated well into the movie, right? Like killing people. You can't kill people in here because otherwise they turn into a ghosty thing, and then they can void out and your game's over, right? Like stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, name one good video game adaptation besides the first Mortal Kombat.
And that's okay. Um,
And that works because it's a video game premise, period. It's just a tournament of people
right.
showing up, saying some quippy stuff and fighting. I
I
love
don't know,
the
man.
original one from the 90s, but
I
name a good one.
remember Doom when that came out with Carl Urban and The Rock like a long time ago, like 20 years
Didn't
ago?
even bother to watch it. I knew it was going to be trash.
Yeah, it wasn't very good. It was shot in first person, by the way.
I thought only one scene was.
Mm-mm.
Really? The whole thing was first
A
person?
lot of it was in first person.
Bro, no. No. There is one good video game adaptation, but I can't remember. I mean, some people are going to say Sonic, some people are going to say Mario. Eh, eh. But like
They're
let's take
probably the
Last of Us.
best. They're probably the best.
Yes,
And did you see
but
the
let's
Last of Us
move.
show?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, it
I was
wasn't.
one of the people who wasn't impressed.
I
You
didn't
know.
like it either. So I played the game too. The game did such a better job conveying Ellie and Joel than the actual show.
Well, I say this all the time. Certain stories are better on certain mediums. Like I talk about live action adaptations. there's certain things you can only do in animation. It won't translate to live action because there's an expectation of this has to be realistic. It can't be have too much bullshit, right? So the thing about The Last of Us for me, that fit that fit better as a video game because the premise is this is a guy who's lost everything. He's practically lost his humanity. It takes days. I forgot how long they're together. Days, weeks for
A
her to
year and a half.
penetrate him emotionally. Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, a
It's
year
like
and a half.
it's like a year and some change when they actually,
Yeah.
because it takes them 8 months just to get to the hospital from if I remember correctly, and then they would get back to his
Mhm.
brother's settlement in Wyoming. Dude, they don't have cars.
Like, dude, he lost everything. He lost practically his humanity, and then by the end of that journey, he calls her baby. Like that becomes his baby girl. And it didn't feel earned in the show because they didn't show that. They spent a lot of time wasting time. Like, why did we get a whole? If you're only going to have what? Did they have 6 or 7 or 8
It was eight
episodes?
episodes, yeah,
If
something
you're
like that. The in
if you're only
between
going to have that
times.
amount, if you're only going to have that amount, why are we going on a tangent episode about Ellie's sexuality and her like
Briefly discussed in the game. The thing is that when you're playing the
it was a
game,
DLC.
when you're playing the game and you're like exploring, that's when the quips of her doing those cringy jokes come out. Them start building rapport. There's no rapport building. It's like you said, it wasn't deserved that they even got the relationship. It just seemed forced because it was obligatory to push through the story, not because it was a natural occurring thing.
Yes. Like when he calls her baby girl in that one episode,
I was
I'm
like,
like, I
nah.
didn't feel it. But in the game
There is
now,
no rapport. First off, the person who does Ellie, is an awful choice, pure awful.
clear
And
miscast, and she's a good actress, but I feel like she was miscast. I'm just gonna say it.
I feel
I
like
feel like Pedro Pascal was miscast.
yes, well, we are having Pedro Pascal fatigue right now. There's plenty of other
Dear
people
God,
that can
yes,
fit this bill.
yes.
There's plenty.
Well, see, you know why I think they picked Pedro Pascal? They change in the show. The Ellie and Joel in the show are totally different from the video game Ellie and Joel.
Mm-hmm.
Like Ellie's a lot more edgy. Ellie's a lot more. She has a lot more Joel from the video game than Joel does
Yeah, she's
have.
not. She's it's
And
like she's got something to prove or something, and she's only got a chip on her shoulder. Like she's
yeah,
like,
chip in her shoulder. That's what I'm trying to
I'm
say.
like, this is not. She no. The whole point for her in the game, she was innocent. She was naive. She didn't understand how things worked.
Yes,
She started getting edgy when she started seeing how things worked. When she
yes,
knew Joel was lying to her about him killing everyone in the Firefly Hospital because he didn't want her to die for the cure, and she wanted that to happen because she felt like her immunity had purpose at that point other than just servicing her. And then at that point she had this whole thing within the entire time, and then when he was killed she carries that guilt of having that anger towards him along with taking revenge. So it's this dichotomy of contradictory thoughts, and that's what grew the character for her in the second game. And none of this is happening. All of this is going to be forced. And when Joel's killed,
mm.
you're like, oh my God, finally. It's like putting someone who's got stage 4, who's 106, pushing in a wheelchair. It's like, finally, the suffering's over. Like, this is so bad. Like, when she gets to that point, none of it's going to be like believable that she's actually doing this because she loved him and she hated him and she has the guilt for hating him.
And dude, they oh my gosh, what they did to his character, Joel's character in the show,
They
bro.
bastardized
First of
him,
all,
dude. Emasculated him.
Joel's a bad motherfucker in the game. All right, to the point that they even said it in the show. Oh, she's like, you're afraid of him. Like his girl was telling you're afraid of him. You can't touch me because you're afraid. You'll be afraid of what he does to you. But in the show, they do that. They say that line, right?
It's
But when you meet
unbelievable.
him, it's not.
You're like, hey,
It's not. I'm like, this guy.
he reminds me of Jerry from Rick and Morty, dude. Harmless.
I'm like, he's soft like there's a he's soft like baby shit. Like he's like,
You know who they could have had in there? Like honestly, it doesn't matter if it looks like him. Just had Troy Baker in there.
they could have.
They had Troy
He's the
Baker.
age.
Troy Baker was in there because he was the deputy to the cannibal pastor
Yeah, I
in the
know.
town of Utah instead. It's
I
like, why
know.
not just have him? One, he
But
can
they
do the
wanted
voice.
more a more popular
No,
guy,
God,
a
well
more
that
popular face.
it's a
And we already talked
popular
about
it's a popular franchise. You don't need a popular face to already. It doesn't
and
matter.
it's we already talked about why does, Hollywood keep going to Pedro Pascal. I mean, he's Reed Richards for God's sakes. We already talked about
Awful
that in other
choice.
podcasts. But thank you. Another miscast. But
Like in Gladiator, like I saw Gladiator 2. I'm like, why do we have a
you
black
actually
guy?
watched that shit?
Yeah, I was like, why do we have a black guy as like the emperor, pretty much?
Oh, he was the emperor in that?
No, he was like the emperor. Like he was like he had the type of power. No, the emperor was some whiny bitch kid, but he had the
Oh yeah,
power.
it
Like
was the
he
twins.
was a high. Yeah, he was high up in the food chain. Though I'm like, this is not. I don't remember. I don't remember this in ancient civilization class in school that this was possible. But okay,
Yeah.
let's go with it. You know,
Though there were different races of people in Rome at the time, a true blood Roman would be the one to have that sort of power,
not
not
him.
anybody else. You know what I'm saying? But this is
Anyway,
Ridley
but
Scott who's
we're
senile.
yeah,
You know,
we're digressing. So this, but you're right. There's not a lot of adaptations, but Death Stranding, I think, might be able to break it if we let this guy Hideo Kojima do his thing. Who
I don't
knows?
think so.
What, like he
I don't
can't
think
do
so.
it? You don't trust him, or you don't trust the studios allowing him to do it?
Both, but two reasons. One, he Kojima has been doing this for what 20, 30 years in one
More,
medium, games. And games don't have a limit on how much content they give you. And they don't like he knows how to
yeah.
work a budget with a video game.
I get what you're saying.
Two, it's going to be hard to condense what his vision. Two, I think he's starting to have that issue where someone is so good at what they do that once the constraints are gone, they start to going off in the rails and they go off into like the George Lucas realm of I'm controlling everything with the prequels, so I can do whatever the fuck I
You
want.
can't have a guy who's used to having all of this artistic like freedom constrained to an hour of his content, or in his case, a
Exact.
couple hours. It doesn't work.
8 hours at most.
Because then all of a sudden now, because it's a movie, all of a sudden it's like, how what are you going to choose? What parts are you going to choose from the game you're going to put in the movie? All of
Thank
it's
you.
important in the game. All of it. That's why it's in there. So
Thank you.
how are you choosing it?
So I would have more faith in a Kojima TV show or movie if it was an original idea from him, not
Mm.
something from one of his previous games.
But that's still tough because those. I mean, here's the thing: his shows got to be movie lengths for each episode for it to work. Like Guillermo del Toro is in that game. He plays one of the doctors, which is crazy. Like you get the dude. That game has a cast. Like it's crazy
I
with the
know
cast.
the cast is crazy. I've seen the cast. I'm like, bro, what the fuck? I forgot where he went. Oh no, he started his own company. Like he got all the funding in the world, and he did his due diligence. Like when he severed his ties with Capcom, I can't think right now.
Yes,
I think Capcom. He went on a tour of just going to the hottest directors around and just sat down and talked to them. That's it. That's all he did. Pick their brains,
dude.
and then I think he did Death Stranding after that.
Yes, Death Stranding came out
And
in 2019. He
oh
already
really?
had
Wow.
Death Stranding 2 conceptualized before 2021. He changed it up because he wanted to reflect how the world was with COVID. He wanted to really show that the world can really get like this. And Death Stranding 2 is coming out this year. Obviously, I'm going to get it. So here, I'll give you a background. So I played Death Stranding originally on the PlayStation a while back. I gave up. It was too hard. And you know me in hard games. I love them. I love Elden Ring.
You gave up?
I gave up. And this was in the beginning,
Jesus.
and I was just sitting like, I can't do this. So I decided to get it a couple weeks ago on the Xbox because it was a port on the Xbox a few months ago, and I finally got past the part that hung me up the first time around, and I started to really think. I started playing a little more. I'm like, I actually like this. I enjoy it. I see why people like this. However, it doesn't mean that everyone should play it. If you like Dark Souls, you like Elden Ring, that type of challenge in terms of death instantly, there's lots of things to figure out, puzzles, it's for you. Otherwise, don't touch it and just enjoy the movie when it comes out.
Yeah, like stuff like that. Like, I'm such a casual gamer that I'll play a game for a little bit, and
It's
then
not a
I'll
casual
usually
game.
stop,
It's not a
and then
casual
I'll
game.
just watch all the cutscenes online. I did that for Last of Us 1 and 2. I did that for a bunch of the Assassin's Creed games when they were good games back in the day. Like, like so for me, I watched The Last of Us like a movie, like a
Watch Death
5 hour movie.
Stranding. You'll get a lot of it. A lot out of it, I think.
I'll check
Troy
it out because
Baker
there's
plays a
people
great
who
bad guy in there.
because
Fantastic.
there's people online who just make movies, they call them,
Yeah.
and they just put cutscenes and a little bit of gameplay to mesh it together, but just all the cutscenes of stuff of video games is sometimes like 5, 6, 7 hours, and I just watch them over time.
And tell me
So
this, Mads Mikkelsen always plays the best character when you think he's bad, but he's not. When it comes to find out he's vindicated, I'm like, dude, this guy is so good, man. Like, why does he make it look so easy to do as good as he does, man?
right,
All right, so
right.
last thing, we can talk about UFOs another time. I sent you that video. All right, so we got Super Bowl this weekend, Eagles and Chiefs. I think we've seen this show before. Who you got?
I think Eagles.
Mm.
I think we need a shake up. We need a shake up.
You know me, dude. I have to root for the Eagles because you know my lady's an Eagles fan, and to care about our lover and we got a kid, I got to do it, right? And married to her and all that
I
stuff.
care about our lovers, so I gotta do
But
it.
I hate the Eagles fan base, and us being from the area and us living there as long as we did, or me living there as long as I did. I really
I
don't want the satisfaction from the base getting anything at all.
I know because they're gonna
I hate
tear up
it.
their own city when it happens.
It's ridiculous. They're the worst in every sport. I've been, and it's disgusting, and it's just you guys don't deserve it. But I can't have a three-peat either. So I'm at this
Yeah.
point where I'm doing it to stay face because she's an Eagles fan, and I just got to suck it up, and she does it for me. But if she wasn't in the picture, I want the Chiefs to win so bad, and I hope it was a 55-7 type of thing.
Hey, that would be dope, man. And it could be a possibility with Saquon and Jalen Hurts. But
We never know.
yeah, yeah, go Birds. So I hope you learned something, my nomads. Go Birds.
Uh,
Kill them. By the time this comes out, we'll know who wins. But, is what it is. Peace. Be
Peace.
creative.